Welcome, rational thinkers and champions of evidence-based reasoning, to the Free of Faith podcast. This is the place where we dare to peel back the comforting but opaque layers of faith-based claims and expose their logical shortcomings. Today we're diving into a quandary. How does a single offense incur the penalty of eternal punishment? Buckle up. We're going to keep this lively, clear, and fair, and we'll let the reasoning do the talking. Let's start with a thought experiment. Picture a judge who gives the same sentence of life imprisonment to everyone. Jaywalking? Life. Tax mistake? Life. Assault? Still life. Now raise the stakes. The judge says the worst offense is failing to respect his authority, and he justifies every sentence by how hurt he feels. If that makes you roll your eyes, you're not alone. Now mentally swap the human judge with the divine judge depicted in the Bible, and the sentence of life with eternal punishment. This exposes the core tension we're exploring. If we recoil at the human version, why should we accept the divine one? This tension sits at the heart of Christian theology, and it's not a fringe view. Surveys show 79% of Christians in the States believe in hell, with evangelicals particularly likely to view hell as eternal conscious suffering. That means most Christians affirm a doctrine that raises sharp questions about love, patience, and justice. Let's break it down. First, love. As described, divine love surpasses human love, steadfast, restorative, resilient. Yet eternal punishment cuts off reconciliation forever. That looks less like love and more like abandonment. A wise parent doesn't disown a child forever over finite mistakes. Why would a perfectly loving God? Second, patience. Scripture calls God slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. Yet eternal punishment says your finite lifetime is the only window you get. No growth beyond the grave, no second chances, even if you die before adulthood. Patience, in ordinary language, includes allowing time for growth and repair. How does infinite patience harmonize with zero opportunity after death? Third, justice. Proportionality is the heartbeat of justice. We don't punish snitching a cookie the same as we punish violent assault. Eternal punishment flattens the scale. One lie or a lifetime of violence. All lead to the same infinite penalty. If humans inherit an unrequested and unavoidable tendency to sin, infinite retribution for finite sins is far from justice. There's also the math problem. Finite actions, even many of them, are still finite. Moving from a finite set of offenses to an infinite punishment is escalation without basis. If we're expected to emulate divine justice, but divine justice rejects proportionality so fully that it's unrecognizable, what exactly are we emulating? Analogies help. The judge who jails everyone for life is unmistakably tyrannical. The parent who permanently disowns a child over spilled milk is unequivocally unloving. The teacher who gives one high-stakes exam and condemns underperformers forever can never be called fair. Each scenario makes abundantly clear the illogic behind the doctrine of eternal punishment. Defenders reply in familiar ways.
God's justice is beyond human comprehension.
But if justice is opaque, humans can't recognize or emulate it.
Offenses against an infinite being have infinite weight.
Yet the status of the offended doesn't multiply proportional penalties.
Eternal punishment reflects free will.
But if choices are made under ignorance and finite constraint, with no chance to revise, how free is that?
God is infinitely loving and infinitely just.
Yet infinite love, without restoration, looks more like infinite resentment, and justice, without proportionality, is indistinguishable from vengeance. The logic is clear. 1. Finite offenses do not proportionally yield infinite punishments. 2. Eternal punishment entails irrevocable severance, conflicting with love that restores. 3. It denies ongoing opportunities to change, undermining patience. 4. Justice requires proportionality. Infinite penalties for all offenses fail that test. Adding faith-based defenses doesn't resolve the contradictions. They just reframe or rename them. What complicates matters further is the requisite order of faith and logic. Believers begin by assuming God is logical and loving, rendering doctrines like eternal punishment immune to scrutiny. Apparent contradictions are dismissed as human misunderstandings. That's inverting the rational order. An honest evaluation starts with logic, not faith. We must ask whether the doctrine itself coheres with love, patience, and justice, not assume coherence and retrofit the reasoning later. In addition, some say only God can define love, patience, and justice, while human understandings of these terms are illegitimate. But if these concepts have no meaningful connection to human experience, we can't recognize or emulate them. Love that severs forever, patience that ends at death, and justice that abandons proportionality aren't higher versions of our concepts. They're different concepts using the same labels. If the redefinitions of divine attributes become incomprehensible to humans, they lose relevance. In conclusion, we are left with a doctrine that collapses under its own contradictions. If a judge, parent, or teacher acted this way, none of us would call it justice. Scaling from human to divine should heighten fairness, not erase it. Eternal punishment for finite offenses isn't just unsettling, it's incoherent. Appeals to infinity, fiat, or free will don't solve the problem. They only disguise it. Honest scrutiny reveals that the logic simply doesn't hold. If this conversation has sparked some questions or even some discomfort, that's a good thing. Questioning is the first step toward clarity. Don't settle for easy answers or platitudes. Dive deeper, explore further, and demand evidence. Head over to Free of Faith to read the full article and join the discussion. Let's keep this conversation going, because the pursuit of truth doesn't stop at questioning. It's about finding answers that actually make sense. Thank you for tuning in to the Free of Faith podcast, where we expose the logical failings of faith and celebrate the clarity that comes with reason. Until next time, stay skeptical, stay curious, and remember, rationality always outperforms faith. Engage reality, and I'll see you soon.